Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? It's your boy Isaac.
And this is your boy Bryce.
And we are brothers on tennis. And folks, we got a good one for you today. Talk about closing out the year in style. We got some fellas that we've talked to throughout 2024. And Bryce, you and I talked about this, bro. And I got to give you mad kudos. You thought of this idea, you got these gentlemen together, and for us to be able to do this show, I'm extremely excited. So I'm not going to waste any more time. I will pass it to you for introductions, and then we will get into this. Let's go.
All right. And look, to our family, by this time of the year every year, we have wrapped it up for the year. But we decided, what if we did a year in review where we had a guest panel? And, whoever those three individuals might be. Never did we think the three individuals on the first year would be the three individuals that we have. We started at the top and now we're here still. So, look, if there was ever a panel that did not need an introduction, it is this one, but we're going to do it anyway for the one of two of you that may not be in the loop. With us today, we have two of your favorite people from the Tennis Channel. I mean, we have the always affable Mr. Prakash Amritraj, who is, when I see this guy on the grounds at a tournament, I have to stand in line and I have to wait until I get an opportunity to tug on the back of his shirt. But we are totally excited to have him with us today. We also have with us the captain of the TC desk. You know him, Steve Weissman, our guy. Steve, thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
And then, in case you don't remember him from his sports broadcasting days,
never get right.
We all know him from the entertainment world, most particularly Entertainment Tonight. Our Cincinnati homie, our guy, Mr. Kevin Frazier. Gentlemen, welcome to Brothers on Tennis.
Great to be here. Thank you for having us.
Awesome.
I'm excited. I mean, I get to talk sports, so I'm geeked. Let's go on. Rep me up, I watch these two all the time, so I'm just really drafting off things they've said. I'll just be honest, okay?
My guy, is there anything to talk about this year? Did anything happen in the tennis world? I mean, what an eventful year, right?
Man, talk about that, Prakash. I mean, 2024 has been ridiculous. And I mean, I guess first and foremost, the one thing that we do have to talk about, we always talk about it, the big 3/big 4. And we had a lot of retirements. We just had our brother Rafa Nadal retire at the end of this season. Lest we forget, Andy Murray, a part of that big 4, also retired this summer, right after Wimbledon / the Olympics. Kevin, talk to us about kind of the impacts that they've had and kind of, other retirements that you've seen, Dominique Thiem and what have you. What are some of your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think of Rafa right off the bat, of the style of Rafa. And, go all the way back to the dude who had the cutoff, when he came out with that cut where he had his guns out and the cutoffs in those damn culottes, everybody was like, what is this? But he was not only a stylish player who influenced the flavor of the game, he also was one of the greatest players. And on clay court, I lived through Bjorn Borg, and I was like, there'll never be another one. No one will be better than Borg. And then here comes this Spanish kid, and he obliterates everything. I just love the flair, the workmanship. I'm shocked that his arm didn't fall off at some point during his career because of the way he swung it. But he was an incredible statesman for the game. And once again, when I know you guys think technically, I think of it as who's the guy who is in the culture? And he was one of those people in the culture. People wanted to be cool like Rafa. And let's not forget, I mean, he left balding, but he came in with the hair and all that stuff. He will be missed. He will be missed. And I mean, that's right off the bat for me.
There you go. Prakash, Steve, jump on in. What are your thoughts about those retirements that we had this year?
The first two things that come to mind are the words evolution and appreciation. Mm-hmm. I think, there are retirements that we see year after year, players leaving the game. But I think this particular set, starting probably with Fed and then kind of leaking in over to here, it's kind of the separation of a previous generation and this new generation. And whenever that happens, I know we like to talk about, would this person have beaten this person in different generations, who's the GOAT and so forth. But everyone does the best they can and elevates the game to the highest level of the game with all the tools they have. And that was the best that we saw, the big three. And now all of a sudden we're seeing a different type of evolution. We're seeing a player like Alcaraz, who's more complete at that age than any of the big three. Who's to know where that'll go? And that'll go. It really does look like a video game now, which is completely wild. So I think it's appreciation for the generation we saw and how beautiful those matches were. I think of Dominic Thiem's match against Rafa Nadal at the U.S. Open, the 5-setter, some of the greatest striking I've ever seen. And then I want to see where these young guys continue to evolve the game. And just tagging on what Kevin said, because we all have to give a word on Rafa. Everything that Kevin said, couldn't agree more. He transcended the sport, 1,000% affected the culture. The biggest part of Rafa for me was he was one of those athletes, and I have them in different sports, where you just look at him and it makes you want to be better. It makes you want to try harder. It was a guy who I remember him more for the non-tennis. I'll just tell one quick story. 2019, I was at the Nitto finals, and he played Daniil Medvedev. 3-setter match. Daniil was up 5-1 in the third set. Rafa comes back, match points down, wins the match, and everyone says, "Oh my God, you came back! Medvedev's having such a great year, blah, blah, well done." And he says, in his typical Rafa fashion, "It's not the comeback that I want everyone to mention and remember. It's the fact that when I was down 5-1, I never threw a racket, I never cursed, I never got angry."
Yeah.
And that is probably the best thing I'll remember from Rafa.
Great point.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Kevin and Prakash said. I think the sport of tennis is one of those sports where we have one-name transcendent stars. Not a lot of people in the world that are one-name transcendent stars. You say Rafa, you can go anywhere in the world. You know exactly who you're talking about. And that's the kind of impact that he was able to have. And like Prakash said, I mean, this is a guy who was inspiring. The fact that, if you wanted one match for your life, you're probably choosing Rafa Nadal because that he plays not even every single point, but every single shot, like his life depends on it. Yeah. And that's something you don't see from really any other tennis player or any other athlete in the world. I mean, we see NBA players with, load management, right? we don't see it at all. It's literally every single shot is like life depends on it. And I'll throw out 3 stats just because there's so many things he did that may never happen again, but some of these stand out. 912 weeks inside the top 10 in a row. That's nearly 18 years of his life he was inside the top 10 without going out. The 14 Roland Garros titles. Don't know if anyone will ever do that at a single major, much less at Roland Garros. But the one that stands out most to me is the fact that he won more titles on the surface of clay than he lost matches in his career.
That's a great stat. That's a great stat.
63-51. And to me, that's just insanity. And that's why he is the king of clay. But he was able to do it on every surface and literally for 3 different decades had Hall of Fame careers. 3 separate decades had Hall of Fame careers. For Dominic Thiem, I mean, a guy with 17 titles, got to 3 in the world, won a major. A really great guy as well. We were able to work with him. He was part of our U.S. Open crew a couple of years ago, brought great analysis, great positive spirit. Really enjoyed watching him play and was one of the few players, one of 2 people on the planet that have at least 5 wins against each of the big 3. And the other guy to do that is Andy Murray. And you mentioned Andy Murray and, somebody to win the Olympics a couple times, which has never been done before. And to get to number 1 in the world, I know we say the big 4, but in the era of the big 3 is something that I'll never forget. 2016. I mean, that really took his whole life. I mean, the career wasn't the same after that, but he was able to achieve number 1 in the world in literally the peak of Rafa, Roger, and Novak. And that's something that's really special.
Can I just say something, Steve? You're so good at your job, man. I do love watching. I'm serious. I do love watching you because you're so damn good at it. And people don't understand. It's very hard to sometimes do studio show and then call matches. All those things are different disciplines, and you do it so damn well. I just got to give you a shout out about that. I do love it, and I love watching you.
100%. 100%.
That's very humbling to hear from you, because I've always looked up to you. You know that, and you're one of the goats of the game. So that means a lot.
No, you're really damn good. And I also want to say this about Andy Murray. You know, we forget that, like, Andy Murray is one of those guys that, you know, as he hovered around the top 5, the top 3, we're always like, is he going to break through? Is he going to break through? And, you know, I think about the story that I saw on ESPN about his hometown and that shooting, and I just looked it up to make sure I got it right. It's Dublin, Scotland. And after that, you fell in love, you know, you thought about it, and it humanized him so much, at least for me. And I think so many fans. And so every time he went to Wimbledon, you started, then it was like the watch is like, can he get over this hump? And I remember watching it and crying like a little baby, like, oh my God, I can't believe this moment, because you understood what it meant to this guy. And so for somebody to play with a broken body like he did, and to give so much, and you looked at him and you said, damn, he ain't got nothing left, man. It's not a Kawhi Leonard situation. That's all I'm going to say. No disrespect,
Right.
disrespect, because at least this dude played with a broken body, not just a dragging a leg. So
it's the greatest compliment we can give to any athlete, anyone in whatever field they do, right? When you have nothing left in the tank, yes, sometimes the ultimate athletes who we admire the most give even more than they have. But that's really how you want to go into your last days, isn't it? No regrets, feeling like you've really given everything out there. And it's a beautiful thing to watch, you know, when you can take some of that out into your own life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So talking about kind of on that last round, if you will, you have someone like a Djokovic who has still, you know, at the top of the game, still fighting his way through with these young cats, Alcaraz, Sinner, all of them, you know, starting to really get into their own. He comes out not able to win a Grand Slam this year, but he was able to add to that resume with a gold medal at the 2024 Olympics. Steve, I'm going to come to you with this one. Talk to us really about how Djokovic's year was in your I guess thoughts as far as winning the gold medal but not actually capturing an additional slam.
Well, he said it at the start. What mattered most to him this year was the one thing that had eluded him his entire career, and that was an Olympic gold medal. He's playing right now for majors and team events, and so to represent his country, Serbia, and hold up that gold at the end, I think was the most important thing for him this year. He's already won 24 majors. So that was the goal. So to me, it was a successful season. The fact that he had knee surgery, came back and still made the finals of Wimbledon, and then went back on the clay and won that gold medal in Paris is something that's absolutely remarkable. And every time he steps on a court, you know, he's still the favorite, in my opinion. I know Sinner and Alcaraz took all the majors this year, but I still believe when we get to Australia, you know, at the start of 2025, that Novak is one of the top contenders, and why not? He's won that tournament 10 times before. So I don't think it was a disappointing season for him. He still ended up, you know, in the top 8 in the world. He chose not to go to Turin for the year-end finals. But to me, that gold medal, I mean, he said it himself. That was the one thing that he'd never had before. He accomplished that. Now it's just getting to 25, and I think he does it next year. But that's literally all that's left for him. He's got a better record than everybody else. He's won more than anyone else. And now it's just to get 25 above any human on the planet in terms of majors.
That's right on. Prakash, or Kevin, go ahead.
No, Prakash, go ahead.
I mean, look, Novak, I can't say enough good things about Novak Djokovic in no particular order. The first thing is, even you look at this year, you look at last year, where do you find it? When you wake up in the morning, where do you find it? You know, I asked him one time on the desk, LeBron talked about this story. He's like, you know, some days you don't have it. Sometimes I look in the crowd and be like, oh, you know what? Oh, he's a LeBron hater. You know what? That's what I'm going to focus on today. Where do you find it when you've literally defeated and completed the game of tennis? So I think that still baffles me, and why he's in sort of a league of his own. And I think he's in a very interesting part of his career right now. It almost reminds me of the beginning of his career when he was coming in, he was beating everyone, and then all of a sudden there was this unsolvable puzzle, which was Roger and Rafa, and how do I put myself into there. And then he got in, he obviously dominated. And I think he's in a place where he's going to kind of enjoy this new challenge. Sinner and Alcaraz have really risen there to the top, split all the majors this year. And he gets to feel like, you know what, I got something to solve again over here. He could kind of go out there with his eyes closed and beat most of the guys before. And now, there are a few guys where he's going to have to problem solve a little bit. I love what he's done with his team. I'm sure we'll get into that at some point. So I think he's in a fascinating stage where he can find that motivation a little easier because it's right in front of him. And lastly, this is not to speak about anybody else. I'm literally just talking about the good of Novak here. Roger Federer's retirement, Novak was there. Rafa's retirement, Novak was there. Andy's, he was there on the court at Wimbledon for Andy's retirement. And then in December, absolutely no need to do this when you should be training with Andy Murray getting ready for Australia. He flies across the entire world to go be there and somehow find a way to make a good match and let Juan Martín win in that retirement match. That says a great deal about the guy who has won the most in tennis.
We will miss him when he's gone. When he is gone, we will miss the laughs we had, the days at the U.S. Open where he's out there being a joker, and we love those moments. Yeah. And he's meant that much to the game just as an ambassador in that way. But I always think about what he's meant to his country. And I go all the way back to Goran Ivanisevic after he won. And if you remember him standing on that pile, holding those the flames, and it was like wearing the Drazen Petrovic jersey, that the line runs deep for Serbian folks. And so I just think of what he has meant to that country and the way he has changed the view of everything, and that what he will be. As far as tennis is concerned, he at the end of the day is the greatest to ever do it. And I don't know how he does. And it's like LeBron. You're like, dude, are you waiting to play with your child? What are you doing, man? How do you keep doing this? And so I just know that we will miss him when he's gone. And I go all the way back to when, he was at the US Open, he couldn't win. If you remember when he was getting sick, he wasn't in shape. It was like, this kid, he has so much talent, but he's never going to get over that hump. And damn it, look at him now, the greatest to ever do it. And we just need more personalities like him in tennis.
One of the things that I'm going to say about Djokovic, and our followers will know, back in the day, I didn't always know how I felt about Novak. But the one thing that I've always said about him is whenever I've seen him lose, the most gracious in defeat. And I respected that about him. And like you said, Kevin, I think there are a lot of people who may have been a little undecided in terms of how they felt about Novak during his
at a point.
Let's just be playing days.
Keep it real. There were a lot of people.
But I think when he's gone, I do believe he's going to be missed.
Oh, 100%.
He'll get his flowers when he retires. He'll get the full bouquet, because I do think that, again, a lot of you got the Rafa, the Federer fans, it was tough for him. He was trying to squeeze his way in, and that's always tough. But I do believe when he retires, he will absolutely 100% get his flowers the way he deserves.
I hope he gets it before he retires. That would if he doesn't get that love before he retires. I mean, like Kevin said, this is the GOAT. This is the greatest to ever do it. And now the fact that Rafa and Roger are both retired, he needs to get love every time he's on the court, because we're witnessing the greatest. And we should appreciate that more than anything, every chance we get the opportunity to see him play. So I hope he gets it.
Don't disagree with that at all, Steve. And I'm going to come back to you then with the next topic. Speaking of Djokovic, he hired Andy Murray as his coach. What's that all about, Steve? Come on. Give it to us.
There's not a lot of people that can relate, to what somebody who has that many majors and that much success has done. So I don't know where else you go. I think Andy Murray really was itching to get back in the game and misses it, and was getting kind of bored at home. And so, I got word that there were a couple people that were interested in Andy, but, Novak is the greatest. So when he calls, you answer. And so this is, I think, a cool pairing. The one question for me is, because when he's had greats before, whether it's Goran Ivanisevic, whether it's Boris Becker, whether it's Andre Agassi, Hall of Fame players in his ear, they're from different generations. So how do you take input from somebody from your own generation? It's just a little bit of a different situation where you've played this guy, you've beaten this guy more than he's beaten you.
Yes.
But the flip to that is he knows all these players, and Andy Murray has one of the greatest IQs in the game of tennis. And so the fact that he was always somebody that had to do a little extra to get those victories. So he had to watch the tape, find every little deficiency that he could take advantage of. So I think he's going to bring that countless amount of notes and strategy to give Novak maybe that extra 0.01% that he needs to get past Sinner and Alcaraz. So I love it just because I love both of them. And now to bring Andy back in the sport, like I want Rafa to be back in the sport. I want to see Roger as much as possible. So I think it's a cool pairing. I hope it works in Australia. And, I don't know how long it's going to last, but the more we get, two of the big four together, I think the more blessed we are as a sport.
Kevin?
First of all, that's a great point. I worry about a guy coaching you who you used to beat, and you used to beat handily. Now, tennis is one of the few sports where you choose your coach. And because of that, I think people make bad choices sometimes. I think people go out there and they find people that they can work with, they can vibe with, but that may not be your best coach. And that may not be the best fit and situation for you. I look at this and I am concerned because of the intensity of both of these people. Andy's intensity level is through the roof. So is Novak. And I think Novak needs someone who can laugh a little bit and enjoy it and then get him over the hump. I don't think he needs Andy Murray. I don't think this is the guy for him. And so it'll be very interesting to watch this matchup and see how it works. And the problem is, nobody has beaten Father Time. And as you get older, you're looking at the coaches, but it's really you. Because you want to say it's them. If I get this guy, it'll be better. If I have this much money, if I have this car, if I have this house, it'll be better. No, you're just getting old, bro. And there's nothing you can do. Father Time is undefeated. So I'm worried about this pairing. That's it.
We got 1-1. Prakash, break the tie.
Can I? Am I allowed to play devil's advocate here?
Bring it.
Of course.
Go a different way.
Yes.
Okay. First, the macro. I absolutely am in love with this pairing. So this is why I'll stand behind that. One, it signals to me it's a big statement. It's the fact that I want to try something, and it's been difficult. Like we've seen, look, after Novak lost, kind of a meaningless match earlier this year, I think maybe at Indian Wells, there were pictures of him on the beach in Miami and so forth. And it's, you think about where is his motivation, especially at the smaller events. Is he getting up for these bigger events? He lost kind of a lackadaisical match to a Sinner at the Australian Open. Sinner, of course, played amazing, but, where do you find it? The fact that he made this decision, I take as a good sign as to, what, I'm ready to dig in. So I think mentally, I take that as a good sign. Two, if you listen to Andy Murray, he is one of the best at communicating the technical aspects of tennis, even in layman's form. When he speaks to all of us on the desk, you understand some of the intricacies that you normally wouldn't understand. And compared to a Boris Becker, a Goran Ivanisevic, even a Jimmy Connors, Andy Roddick has talked about working with Jimmy Connors. Some of these great champions, you're going to them for a specific thing. Boris would talk to Novak Djokovic about what it is to be in these finals against the best in the world. And hearing that from Boris was able to get Novak in the right mindset to play Federer in these finals. All of a sudden, they had a very successful relationship. Jimmy Connors talked to Andy about working the crowd in the big moments and a couple technical things on choking up on that backhand. I think Andy, going off of what Steve said about how great he is technically with the strategy, I think he's brilliant at taking him. He's not going to say, this is what I would do in that situation. He's saying, I know your game so well. I know what you do on these points. I know what all these guys do. Let's match this puzzle piece against this puzzle piece. And I think that little Tetris and analysis part of it, I back Andy, just up against, anyone out there. And he loves the game. This is a guy who he'll go watch doubles matches. He knows the results of mixed doubles. He is a true student of this game. So I'm curious to see that how they both take their work ethic into this relationship. And the last thing, and this is going to the generational thing, that they're both in the same generation. Novak has beaten Andy, of course, probably definitely more times than Andy's beaten him. Andy's beaten him in some big matches, finals of the US Open, finals of Wimbledon. I think there's something about being those final two guys in the finals of a Grand Slam and having traded that back and forth. There is an underlying mutual warrior respect that very few other people can understand. And they'll be speaking to each other with that, which I think is really going to help in those big moments. Because I think this relationship, it's about 3 to 5 matchups. And it's about how are you guys communicating with each other and what is Novak doing in those big moments. And one last point, since Kevin brought up Father Time, I think everyone has their Tiger Woods at the 2019 Masters. Everyone has all the great champions, not everyone, excuse me.
Yes.
Tiger at the 19 Masters, Rafa Nadal when he came back from 2-0 against Medvedev in that Aussie Open final, then won the French that year. Pete when he won that final U.S. Open, Ali when he won his 3rd title. When you just don't think it's possible, and they had that one little trick up their sleeve. I don't think we've seen that from Novak. I think that's number 25.
I agree. I think he is going to get number 25 this year. And I thought Steve was right. He was on the money. He is going to get that win. He's going to get it no matter what. Whether it's Andy Murray or whether it's Kevin Frazier sitting in his box, he's going to win. He's going to win. But I just want to take
that would be the best pairing. Now, if
that would be unbelievable.
That's like signed, sealed, delivered.
And I hate that I'm using a basketball analogy, but if you remember when Magic Johnson took over for the Lakers, he coached. He was the coach. And it was a disaster because he couldn't connect with those guys. He just couldn't connect. There wasn't a natural connection. It didn't work. And so I hope this thing works. I hope it's beautiful. But I wonder about the natural connection because you were never as good as this guy. You were never as good as Novak. You were never. You wanted to be, but you never were. And you were chasing him your whole life. I'm worried.
I'll add one thing about the personalities because Andy off court is one of the funniest, laid back, cool cats you'll ever meet. And Novak, the same. So off court, these guys are joking. These guys are pretty much silly. I'm interested to see when Novak chirps at the box, because that's something Murray did quite a bit during his career, how he receives that. Whether he just sits there and takes it or what happens. I actually want to see that. But in terms of personality, they're both like off court. The intensity is not there. It's a very different human.
I have to go with your expertise. I have to rock with it for now. But you better believe I'll call in and be like, I told y'all. I tried.
I love it. I love it. So really quickly, guys, I just want to kind of step away and step onto a different topic here. And Prakash, I'm going to start with you on this one because this is an unprecedented kind of thing that's happening right now. Whereas you've got something happening with not only Jannik Sinner, but you've got something that now has happened with a former number one in Iga Swiatek in regards to them, unfortunately, being flagged for a banned substance in a test. And Iga, unfortunately, is now, I guess she had a month. I believe that was her sentence, if you will. And Jannik is still kind of up in the air. Talk to us really about kind of your thoughts of that whole process. The fact that we had a number one and a former number one that's going through that right now. And you know, what should we look for as far as changes going into 2025?
Well, I'll try to keep this a little bit on the sort of higher level because the complexities of it even give, you know, me and Steve headaches when you get into how complicated this is. But I think what everyone is having a little bit of an issue with is process for everyone. Is everyone getting the same process? Because you find players who are tweeting saying, oh, well, this happened to this person over here, but they got a 6-month suspension or they got a 1-year suspension. How come he just got a couple of tournaments, the money taken away? Or Iga just got this 1 month where she wasn't going to play anyway. The biggest difference is that they have the resources to be able to act on it quicker. Iga actually outlined it in a tweet just maybe a few days ago. She said, "I spent over $100,000 immediately. The minute this positive test came back, she spent over $100,000 on the best lawyers possible to be able to get into the process and make their case as to why she was okay." And players can't do that. So if they're not able to do that, all of a sudden, while the investigation is going on, you're out. Yannick Sinner, he did the exact same thing. He went through the protocol that is outlined in these guidelines, and he just was able to do it a lot quicker because you can make a phone call at 3:00 in the morning and get the best lawyers in the world on the line. So in that aspect, you're following the rules, but when you do have more resources, you're able to, access slightly. Process is the wrong word. You're able to get to it quicker, which in the end can make a difference and look different from the outside.
Gotcha. Steve, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Prakash said. It's about the process, and also for me, it's about the transparency, because we didn't find out about the Yannick Sinner stuff until months later. We didn't find out about the Iga stuff until months later. So, when Iga wasn't playing, we thought, oh, that's interesting. She's taking some time off. She's, getting her body healthy. Actually, she tested positive and was forced to take the time off. And, it came out of nowhere. And, he won, I think, Miami after that. And so it just doesn't look good. Now, I think they're both great people. I believe both of them. And I don't think they meant to do anything wrong. And I also have an issue with when something is literally 0.00001% of whatever in your system. Is that really giving you any physical advantage on court? I would say no. That said, the test was failed. So there are some people that say, oh, you failed a test, 2 years, just like that. I don't believe that. I believe there does need to be a process. There does need to, whether it was intended or whether it was by mistake, as in both of these cases. For Iga, you're taking melatonin, and melatonin in one certain country has something in it that you're not allowed to take. Once again, I don't think something that puts you to sleep or is supposed to help you go to sleep is trying to physically enhance you while you're playing the sport of tennis. You want to have energy, not, be falling asleep on the court. So, it's confusing, I think, for all of us. At the end of the day, there just needs to be more consistency when it comes to the process. And for me, some sort of transparency that for whoever goes through this, because the top players, like Prakash said, are going to spend six figures, and it doesn't matter. No big deal. They just want to get this taken care of. Yeah. Whereas, other players don't have those type of funds to be able to do that. So it just needs to be a little more transparent for me.
Well, listen, these two know so much more about this story than I do and understand the complexities and the intricacies of it better than I do. But I will say this. These athletes don't want to hurt themselves, number one, and do anything to hurt themselves because it costs them money. And number two, they play so much, and the schedule is so demanding that you need something to help you move through these seasons. And I'm not saying illegal substance, but I'm saying there are all kinds of things you have to do to just be able to play at this level, this many matches. And so I'm always like, guys, let's take a second look at this, shorten the season, and maybe people won't be, getting injured or need these things to help aid their sleep or other things like that. But I mean, I've never played in a Grand Slam, but covering it wears me out. So I can only imagine what the hell is it like? I mean, having to play those kinds of matches every other day. It's insanity, the intensity level, and you're there by yourself. So I am always like, hey, let's take a second look before we indict anybody on anything.
Absolutely. And Kevin, what a great segue. That's why I love you. Talking about the schedule, we all know tennis has a very, very long calendar. I don't think it ever really truly stops. But for you, thinking about the schedule, what would be an ideal tennis schedule for you if you were able to establish a window for tennis?
I would shorten everything inside the majors, and that's it. We're done. The Grand Slams, that's it. We're inside the Grand Slams, and if it doesn't happen in then, it's over. Everybody shuts down and stops. You got to stop everybody. Here we go again, saying something that maybe I shouldn't say. I'm going to tell you something. After the U.S. Open ends, I don't give a damn. I don't care. I know there are other important tennis tournaments, but I don't care. I'm out. It's college football season. Pro football has started. Other things. It is a glorious ending to the tennis season. It is the perfect ending. There is nothing like the U.S. Open, and it's a great way to end and shut everybody down and say, go home, get better. We'll see you in Australia. Everything else is about money, in my opinion. Everything else is about money. Shut it down.
Prakash.
In a perfect world, I completely agree. I think tennis should be seasonal. What is this? 30 years now from Pete Sampras's time. Everyone has been talking about we got to shorten it. It's too much tennis, and the big solution now is guess what? Don't play. Play when you want, right? The people who decide to play 30 weeks in the year, you get rewarded more. You want to play less, win more, do what you do. You see Novak very selective. It feels like the guy barely played this year. And he finished, what was it, Steve, 7 in the world, 8 in the world, something like that. So it is, you are the CEO of your own company. You can make the choice. That's the other side to the fact that it's such a long calendar. But the question is now with tennis where it is right now, just given right now, you can't go back and change time. Where do you pick and choose? How do you take away tournaments? One of the best things about tennis in the world is the fact that, in my opinion, it is the most international sport out there. You have players from every single region of the entire globe who are coming to play. And yes, we do need tournaments still in different parts of the world, but you had tournaments in a lot of places. In the 90s is when, actually, my father was the president of the ATP at the time. They put 2 events in the Middle East, which weren't there before. They had events in South Africa. And that portion that Kevin's talking about right after the U.S. Open, that's the most significant Asian swing. Right. And there's a lot of Asian fans there. Tennis is growing huge in China after what Queen Zheng has been able to do this year. Can't wait to see her in Australia. So where do you cut it? I think part of the beautiful growth about the sport is making sure there are big events in all parts of the world. So in theory, completely agree with Kevin. My big thing right now is how would we go about it?
Yeah,
put everything in the summer.
In theory as well. I think a lot of people check out after the U.S. Open and don't care anything about the fall season, the Masters events that go on in Shanghai and Paris, the year-end championships, which, by the way, the year-end championships are 2 of the best tournaments of the entire season. I mean, getting the top 8 in the world to go head-to-head for a week, those are my favorite matches other than the Grand Slams. So, I love having that. And the money there. I mean, Coco Gauff made $4.8 million, largest ever paycheck, men's or women's, at the tour level in history. So for the players, there's a whole lot of money at stake as well. You said it's all about the money, Kev. I mean, money makes the world go round. But more money, more problems. And that means no injuries, right? And so it is difficult. And the players need to make decisions. And so far, their decisions have been to play. And that's even after the year-end championships, after the Davis Cup, after the Billie Jean King Cup. Prakash and I were in New York last week for the Garden Cup. Guess who was there? Carlos Alcaraz, Ben Shelton, Emma Navarro, Jesse Pegula. And then a day later, Carlitos went to Charlotte, made a lot of money, I know. Played Tiafoe, you had Maddie and Sloan there as well. So the players are choosing, even when they could have time off, to play and make money. Those decisions will compound at the start of 2025, and we'll see, how they do. I know Carlos isn't playing anything until the Australian Open, like he did last year. So he kind of takes that extended break so that he can do all these exhibitions and stuff. But, for me, the more tennis, it's better, right? So that's my love. That's my sport. So the more we get of it, the more stars we get every single week. I love it. I know maybe it can last forever because it's always been that way. So until it changes, I don't think it will.
Well, let me ask you a question, and this is just a question, but I'm really curious about your thoughts on some of these. as you go through the US swing and you go through the European swing, there are smaller tournaments, right? Where sometimes players come in and they play a set or two and then they disappear. You know, we have that. We have that during the summer European swing. What do you think about taking some of those tournaments out and adding more moving those high level tournaments into that time frame?
Well, go ahead. You want to go, Steve?
I mean, there's a couple things with those. The players actually, a lot of the top players get paid to play those events.
100%.
So, and you know, and that's also for lower ranked players, because you add the bigger events. Now you're once again taking away from, you know, the players that aren't at the top of the game being able to try and work their way to the top of the game. And that's been an issue that we've talked about for a long time in terms of having more challengers, in terms of having more money at the lower levels, because unlike golf, where you can, you know, be ranked probably like 150 in the world and make $1 million,
yep.
Tennis, it's just not, you know, not feasible right now. Now, if you're the number one player in the world, you're making more than any other athlete on the planet, but then there's a significant drop off. So there's so many different things at stake and so many different stakeholders, right? So you have the ATP, the WTA, the 4 majors, the ITF. So that's 7 different governing groups that are totally separate, that are working for their own, you know, best interests. Then you have all the tournaments that are on their own,
yep,
that are working for their own interests. You know, if you could maybe after the U.S. Open just do those team events, you know, have United Cup, have Billie Jean King Cup, have Davis Cup, have Labor Cup, and maybe the Tour Finals, you know, then what do you do with Asia? Well, that's a great question. I don't have all the answers. It's tough. I don't know. I don't know that you take away, because if you take away those small events, then are you stopping the growth of the game? Because, you know, the 500 in DC, I grew up going to the City Open when it was the Leg Mason Tennis Classic, and that's a big reason why I formed my love for the sport of tennis. So you take away that event and just make it 1,000 somewhere else, you know, all those kids, you know, do you have Francis Tiafoe, right? I don't know.
I just wanted to interject here that there's like a couple of things. Now, I saw the president of the ATP Association recently shaded Carlos Alcaraz for playing the exhibitions and potentially, you know, this could be a time to rest. But haven't there been some moves that have been kind of counter, I guess, productive to this? Didn't they recently raise the minimum number of mandatory tournaments on the WTA? I know that there's this effort for the Masters tournaments and the Tier 1 tournaments on the women's side to expand to 2 weeks versus, you know, the traditional 1 weeks that they've been. It kind of feels like in certain aspects, the professional tennis world shoots itself in the foot by making some of those kind of decisions.
Well, to your point, I think that's exactly what Steve was talking about. When you have so many different groups who are going after their own agendas, you're obviously going to be contradicting each other all over the place. Those 2-week events, by the way, it doesn't seem like I haven't found any players who like it. Because even if you have a day off at the events, it's not a day off. You're still having a full work day. You're just not playing a match. A day off is when you're sitting at home with your kids and playing and not doing a lot, and there's no mental stress either. So that's on the 2-week events. But Kevin brings up a great point about those smaller events. The thing is, this isn't like another sport where you're drafted to a team. You're able to go from college straight to the highest level. You need that intermittent stage. Everyone from Roger Federer to Pete Sampras to everyone came up in the Challengers, came up in those 250s. And as Steve said, they are making it really tough right now. Underneath the 250s and the Challengers, there's a level called the ITF circuit, which it used to be called Satellites, where it was 4 tournaments grouped together. Then they broke those apart and they became Futures. And you could win a ton of those, build your points up and work your way up to Challengers and then so forth. Now it's become even tougher. It is brutal. Players will win a ton of matches and barely get 1-2 points. So you have to win such an excess of matches to even get a couple of points to be able to move up. And guess what? There's no money in this. So now if there's no money in this, how do you sustain yourself to be able to move up? Unless you're some whiz kid junior who wins Junior Wimbledon and Reebok throws $300,000 at you a year. Right. So we need to keep the smaller tournaments to fix that. I think also the smaller tournaments, when you put a $250 or $150,000 challenger in a tiny city in Asia, you'll get the stadium packed because they're so hungry for sport, and they don't get it. They don't, forget a Novak Djokovic. They don't get any kind of sport there. So I think there's an important economy for those smaller events. I think it's needed for the sport to grow. But I don't know. I'm thinking off the cuff here. Maybe similar to golf, you have different tours.
Yeah.
And maybe you have that high level tour, as you talked about, Kevin, through the U.S. Open, or if you can pack those tournaments in. I don't know how that would work. And then the separate tour, and if you do well enough on the lower tour, you make it the following year into this tour. But again, the other problem with that is tennis, everyone's an individual contractor.
Right.
No one's on a team, so you get to pick and choose. I think it's beautiful sometimes. A guy like Andy Murray, who may have been ranked really high, if he's having a rough clay court season and he loses in Rome, he may go play a $75,000 challenger in Bordeaux just because he needs some matches. And you're not going to find that if Carl Anthony Towns is all of a sudden having a rough couple of weeks. He can't go down to the G League and just start to feel good about himself.
Oh no, they'll send him. They'll send him. They'll send him. They'll send his ass quick. And I say that, it's interesting because you do have the G League, you have the minor leagues in baseball, you have other tours in golf. I just think it would be interesting if they kind of segmented tennis a little bit better so that the guys at top, they don't have to play so many different tournaments. And also, you don't want to water down those great matchups. You don't want to make it like the Celtics, the Celtics and Lakers every other week, because it waters down. I want to see those two I want to see the top guys. I want to see Alcaraz, and I want to see him against Novak on the biggest stages. I don't want to read about they faced off and, in China overnight, and I missed it. And I'm like, oh, who cares? No, give me him on the big stage.
That was a big, when you play the Masters 1000s, those are big matches.
I'm just saying. I'm just a fan. I'm not in it right now, so I'm just a fan. So I'm giving you fan perspective. That's all.
And this is why we love Kevin Frazier, y'all. I'm telling you. So we're gonna do a rapid fire here, fellas, because we are kind of running a bit on the time frame. I want to get your thoughts around the year in number one. Sabalenka ended the year number one this year. Sinner, of course, ended for the men. Quick thoughts. Kevin, I'm going to start with you.
Sinner, one-time deal. Here comes. I think that Novak is going to come back and have a big year, and he's going to at least win one major. I think the kid just filled in a gap. I know this is sacrilege. I know. I'm just saying. I think he filled in a gap, and I think that Alcaraz is going to get his thing going again, and Novak is going to be back. This is the last hurrah, so he's going to win that major. And I think this is going to be a great year for Novak. I hope it is. And not because of Andy Murray, just because he's going to win these damn things before he's too old. On the women's side, I just want to say that I believe that Coco Gauff is the future. And I believe that once she gets it together, I just worry about Sabalenka and her stability. That's where I worry about her stability. And I don't know if that stability can push her through to be one of the greats. If you look at the women who have been at the top of the tennis game, they have sustained. And you go all the way back. Let's go back to Martina and Chrissy. And, they sustained. When they came to a tournament, it was like, this is us and there's y'all. And we aren't seeing that anymore. And I'm waiting for the woman who's going to step forward and say, this is mine and there's the rest of y'all, because we haven't had that since Serena.
All right, Steve, thoughts?
No, that's a great point. And I don't think we have that on the men's side either, because I don't think Sinner and Alcaraz are guys that just automatically in a draw make the semis of that tournament. They're not. Sinner was this year. I mean, Sinner was pretty infallible this year. Like, he literally won more titles than he lost matches. So Jannik Sinner deserves to be the number one player in the world. I thought he was the number one player in the world, even though he wasn't ranked that towards the end of last year, towards the beginning of this year, when he beat Novak Djokovic at the year-end finals last year. To me, he became a killer because he didn't have that last instinct in him before that. Then he did, goes out, wins his first major. I'm like, all right, this is the man. And then he just continued that, to win a couple majors. So his season was incredible. And also to be able to compartmentalize the fact that he knew for months all of this stuff was coming down, with the doping, and then he still goes out, and wins Cincinnati, and then is able to take the U.S. Open. I remember when he talked to Prakash after winning Cincinnati, and you could just tell he was not. I don't know. He just didn't seem super hyped or happy or whatever. He was very calm, and he just won a big match. And then the news came out right after that. And then knowing all of that, he goes out and wins another major at the U.S. Open. So he has no weaknesses in his game right now and is only getting better and is so young. So, I mean, that kid is really, really impressive. There's nowhere to attack him at this point, and everything he does is a little bit better than everyone else. The only reason he lost 3 times this year to Carlos Alcaraz is because Alcaraz can go to 11, right? So Alcaraz can take his game one step further. And you need that to beat a Jannik Sinner, because Jannik Sinner is going to be like at an 8 or 9 every single match. And if you can't match that shot for shot, you're not going to beat him. Alcaraz has the ability to take it one step further. Sabalenka, I think she does have sustainability. I don't know that it's going to be year after year after year, but she is one of the only players maybe ever that has had the yips on her serve and completely fixed it, never to see it again. Literally. I've never seen that before. And, she went through biometrics. She went through, had a psychologist, and then was like, no, I need to be my own psychologist. This is my problem. I'm going to fix it. I believe a lot in Aryna Sabalenka, but I also believe what Kevin said. Not only is Coco Gauff the future, Coco Gauff is now. She's a veteran. She's a 20-year-old veteran, been on tour for 5 years. Absolute, global superstar. The thing, I don't know if we're doing predictions or whatever. I know Sabalenka's won the Australian Open 2 years in a row. We haven't seen somebody win it 3 years in a row since Martina Hingis. So, not even, Serena was able to do that. I think Coco comes out. She beat Iga and she beat Sabalenka at the year-end finals on the way to winning that. So I'm taking Coco at the first major of the year to start a big year to get to number 1 in the world.
Wow. That's good prediction there.
Yes.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
that.
Hard with you. Come on now.
Just to clarify, to get to number 1 in 25 or to year-end number 1 in 25?
Oh, get to. I don't know about year-end.
Well, let's start with the men. Steve, you hit it. I think the biggest points are he plays at a 8, 9, 9.5 every single time. He's not going to drop below a certain time. The guy's got absolutely no weaknesses. My favorite part about Jannik Sinner, I think this is his greatest asset, is he is the most even keel person on a tennis court. If he wins, if he loses, he's going to go out there the next morning and practice. He's not going to go crazy. He is just completely here all the time. And I think that serves him in really good stead, and probably why he's so ridiculously consistent. Carlos does have that extra level, but is the price of that extra level the fact that he can drop lower? I just think it's wildly entertaining that I don't even think Carlos played his best tennis at the French Open and Wimbledon and still won both, which is still ridiculously tough, even though the surfaces are more similar than they used to be. It's going to be a very interesting 10 years, see who gets more slams between the two of them. I think they both hit double digits. I think it's unfair to look too far past that. I do think Carlos has a bit of an edge physically. I think Jannik is, look, again, everything Steve said, no weaknesses at all and only improving. He can be a little brittle. I think he can be a little more brittle than, I'm comparing this at the highest level, not that he's, brittle compared to the average person, to a Carlos Alcaraz. Carlos is like, he's a rock out there. I think the number 1 in the world is between the two of them next year. I think I don't think it matters to Novak. Even if he does sneak out that slam, he's not going to play enough of the smaller tournaments to compete for all of those points at the end of the year. As deserving as you could possibly get for Jannik Sinner, the way he's managing all of this, absolutely wild. Aryna Sabalenka, I think she's clearly the number 1 player in the world. I really do. I think if you match overall the level on all of the surfaces, I think she's the best. I think on hard court, she separated herself, Australia and the U.S. Open, but I think she's better on clay than Iga is on grass and hard. I think she's better on grass and clay than Iga is on grass and hard. So she deserves to be number 1. The fact that she's overcome those yips, I don't think we can reiterate that enough. You have to be so ridiculously strong up here. And I hate to go into a little bit of a controversial spot in this, but she had that absolute tragedy that happened to her with her ex-boyfriend, and in what was it, March or something like that, right around Miami.
Yep.
She not only stepped out and played that tournament, but she marched on and continued to have an incredible season. And there's so much that goes on in athletes' off-court lives, and to be able to compartmentalize and still go out there and just be laser focused, that kind of stuff shows a lot. Coco Gauff, absolutely the future. She's the most important person, I think, in the women's game. She made over 30 million this year, which is a huge milestone since Serena. And the better she does, the better it's going to be for the sport, the more money that's going to come in. There's no one at that age who carries herself better than Coco. I'm going to put her just under Sabalenka, though, as Aussie Open favorite.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. And the one thing that I will add is whether these players finish first, second, third, or fifth, I believe going forward, the face of the WTA is Coco. The face of the ATP is Carlos.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Completely.
Agree with that.
Agree.
Yeah.
So Prakash, I'm gonna ask you to continue on, and let's just jump into predictions for 2025. Since we're there, we might as well get into it. So if you were to call men and women for 2025, who takes the Grand Slams next year?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I guess I'll go with Sabalenka for the Aussie. I'm gonna go with Coco at the French.
Wow.
I'm gonna go with. I feel like who did Rybakina just hire Weissman? Was it Goran?
Goran, yeah.
Yeah, Goran.
I'm gonna go with Rybakina at Wimbledon, and gosh, U.S. Open's a toss-up. I'm gonna go with Coco. I think Coco's gonna come back, find her way after losing this, and repeat that title in New York. For the men, where's Novak's best shot? I think, it's either Wimbledon or Australian. I'll go with Novak in Australia. I think he's got a lot of good things going right now. A lot of energy with the coaching thing. The French. I think it's Carlos or Zverev, but I think I'll go with Carlos is going to win Wimbledon, and let's go with, Sinner at the U.S. Open, and the French. I really think it's Carlos Zverev.
Which one? Which one, Prakash?
Let's. You know what? I'm the biggest Carlos guy. Let's go with that.
Very good, very good. Kevin, tossing it to you, brother.
Right off the bat.
That was tough.
Yeah.
That is very hard. I'm glad you went first.
Predict the future.
Man.
I do think that Coco's going to win Australia. And I think that Novak will win Australia. And I think he'll get to 25, and it's going to take a weight off his shoulder, and then he'll win again, I believe, at Wimbledon. In between, I think Carlos will win. And I'm just going to say something stupid because I just want something crazy to happen in New York. And I love the late nights in New York when you have an American rocking and everybody gets excited. And if he can lock in, because it's a problem right now because he can't lock in. If Frances Tiafoe can lock in for just 2 weeks, that's all I'm begging. 2 weeks, Francis. Just give us 2 hardcore weeks, man. Get us over the hump and win the U.S. Open. It will be pure magic. Seeing his crew in the stands, jumping up and down, his mom and his girlfriend there in the stand, it will be incredible, and New York will be buzzing. So I think that he wins there. And then Coco, I think, will win Wimbledon. I think Coco will win at Wimbledon. I think that Sabalenka will win the U.S. Open. And, the French Open, I don't know because there's just a plethora of women who can come through at the French. And I think that it is really all about the Eastern European bloc when it comes to the French Open. Somehow they play so well and they just rock it. That showed my age saying Eastern European bloc. But anyway, I don't know. I really don't know. I think the French is wide open. I think the French will be wide open. But Coco is going to win too, and I think that Novak's going to win 2 next year, and then Novak can sail off into the sunset.
All right. Steve, come on, man.
All right. So starting off in Australia, agree with my guy, Kay Frazier. It's going to be Novak getting to 25, and it's going to be Coco getting her first Australian Open title. Like I said, nobody's won 3 in a row since Hingis, and there's been a lot of great players since then. So maybe she plays her in the final and beats her, but the fact that she beat her at the WTA finals and beat Iga there, I think just gives her like that next level confidence. She's over that hump. To me at Roland Garros, Iga Swiatek is the easy pick on the women's side. I just think she's unbeatable on that surface right now. She's beatable, but it's really difficult. For the men, I think it's a much bigger challenge to call that. I agree with Prakash that both Carlos and Zverev are at the top. I think Sinner's a huge challenge there. I think Casper Ruud, everybody always forgets about him. He's made the finals there a couple times.
Good guy.
I don't know if he has what it takes to beat Alcaraz. So I'm going to say Alcaraz defends his title at Roland Garros. For Wimbledon, I love the Rybakina pick. It's actually what I was thinking. She is kind of a variable, whether she's going to be healthy, everything in her life going on. But I mean, she won 3 titles last year, and when she was healthy, was so dominant. She's won there before. I'm not as confident with that pick, and I kind of want to go with somebody else. I mean, Krejcikova came out of nowhere to win that title, and I kind of like the Coco pick. So, but it's such a tough surface for her with the upper hand. I'm going to go Rybakina. I'll go Rybakina, and then on the men's side, I'm going Taylor Fritz. I think that's where our American comes through and wins a major. That's my heart. My head would say Sinner, but I'm gonna pick Taylor Fritz for Wimbledon. U.S. Open, I love the Tiafoe pick. I can't go there, but I love it.
It's a ridiculous pick. Don't feel bad. It's a ridiculous pick, and I'll be the guy.
No, it's not ridiculous. I mean, he made the semifinals. Like, it's not.
Kevin, a few days earlier, I had a lot of caffeine. Someone asked me to make a prediction, and I picked Francis.
Okay.
So,
all right.
I'm with you. Ask me tomorrow. It might be Francis. I'm with you.
If it's Francis, if it's Ben, if it's Tommy, I don't know, like any of those guys. Like, I mean, Taylor made the final. Like, why not? All that said, I don't think I gave Sinner a title yet. So Sinner wins the U.S. Open. And then for the women, I would love Jessie made her first final. I think, honestly, Emma Navarro was, the most improved player of the year this year. And she's only getting better and better. Mentality is so good. It's hard to bet against Sabalenka. Honestly, it's. Did I give Sabalenka anything this year yet? I don't think I did.
I don't think so.
No.
So, I mean, once again, heart Emma, but head Sabalenka.
All right, now you ready for the hot take?
Okay.
All right. So for the women, I agree with what a lot of you have said. So I'm giving Coco 2 for next year. A 2 hard court.
There you go.
Australian, U.S. Open. Iga is going to do her French thing, and I think Rybakina will do Wimbledon. Now, the really hot take here, Carlos Alcaraz wins the first 3 and chokes it out at the U.S. Open December.
Wow. I love that.
And something that I thought Prakash was going to say, I see potentially Carlos as the modern day Borg. I think he's going to run that French Wimbledon thing for a couple of years. They can't even talk.
Okay. Here's what I just want to ask. I just want to ask, and you guys tell me if I'm absolutely crazy. Could there ever be a chance that Naomi Osaka comes back and does something special?
100%.
Absolutely.
100%.
As I was doing this, I was thinking, I was like, oh God, what if she just rises up and gets her game together? Corday dropped his album. Now he can travel with her. He has a tour coming up. This summer, but I think it'll work in the margins where he can go and sit, and watch the tennis tournament.
If Naomi can play the kind of tennis where she was up 5-1 or whatever it was against Iga Swiatek at the French Open, that in the third set, she had match point. That kind of tennis on a hard court, wins you the
Yeah.
U.S. Open. It wins you a Grand Slam. I thought that match would gear her up to win some matches on the grass and then have a huge hardcourt season. We didn't see that. She's 1,000% capable of it. We saw it last year. I think it's just if and when she gets that together. When she does, she's top 3 in the game.
Okay, can I just ask one more question? And my mind is drawing a blank right now because I have 1,000 names in my mind. I mean, you know, I'm balancing like, you know, the Menendez brothers with, you know, their tennis. But what the young Italian woman who made
Paolini.
Yes.
Do we not believe that she could have a breakthrough? Do we not believe that? No. Okay.
I mean, not to win one. I mean, Reynolds was like sick, but and she's not that young. I mean, like she's
on
like,
a scale of 1 to 10, she's a 15 out of 10 in likability. She is just you cannot not cheer for her. And her making the final of the French, Wimbledon, two of the most beautiful stories. You in the women's game, it's beautiful because you got a lot of players who can win Grand Slams, but you need that extra gear. You know, you need that extra power. She, you know, and she makes it with her heart. She makes it with her heart and her spunk on the court and able to fight. But you know, the power. It's a different league with Sabalenka, with Coco, with Iga, especially on the clay. Rybakina. It's just, I mean, it's like howitzers out there.
She could win a doubles major for you though.
Okay, but I mean, just keep in mind, she got there. She got to the promised land. She got so close.
What a year! What a year!
Twice.
What a year! I love the shout out.
What a year! Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
That was good.
And quietly, I'm just going to say really quickly: do not sleep on Muhova, Wimbledon. Don't sleep on.
I like that call.
All I'm going to say.
Yeah.
All right. One thing I want to make sure we get to, because I know that we're going to need to wrap this up here, but there's something that the three of you have in common that I definitely want to get your thoughts on, and that is TT, Taylor Townsend. Her 2024. Kevin, I'm going to start with you because I know that's your girl because we talked about her when we interviewed, and I know how much TT loves both Prakash and Steve. So, Kevin, what about TT in her year?
It was incredible. It was so fun rooting for her and seeing someone who is just like she's a family member. I mean, I will walk in the house and there is Taylor on the phone from China talking to my son, you know, they're talking about music or, you know, spending time with her down in the desert, or when she has time here in LA, she'll just come and she shows up at the house and she's out on the court playing basketball. And I'm like, Taylor, listen, you can't come out here and play basketball with them because if you get hurt, that costs you money, girl. Stop messing around. I just love her spirit. I love what she's done. I love this season. I get so excited, and nothing makes me happier than when she does something special. I say it over and over again. She's a family member, and I love her. She is like the little sister I never had.
Gosh.
I mean, she's like the most real person you can find. You know, she doesn't have a inauthentic bone in her body. And I think that's probably the most attractive thing about Taylor. It's just, you know, she's like gravity. It just kind of pulls you in, whether she's on the court, whether she's on the screen. You know how much work she's done at Tennis Channel. You're just magnetized to the TV because you love watching her. I love having her on the desk when I get to interview her because I just just give her the mic and just let her run the whole thing. You know, I don't need to do anything out there. She's just one of those people who makes you smile, and that transcends the court. You know, that's just the kind of person you just want to be around in life. So, you know, I got all the love in the world for TT. And then separately, you know, just 30 seconds on her tennis game. For me, I want the 90s back. I want serve and volley all day long. So the way Taylor plays, I could watch that style all day long. And by the way she's playing, she gives a lot of players, even some of the top players, a lot of fits. Because she mixes up the spin, she comes into the net, she slices and dices. Absolute blast to watch.
I'm an energy person. You know, I'm all about it. Taylor Townsend is beautiful energy. You want to be around her. Her smile lights up a room. You can't not be in a joyous mood when TT's around. I've loved working with her. I love the fact that she's, you know, become a part of my life now, and I can text her after her accomplishments. And unlike some other tennis players who are very different on court and off court, Taylor, like Prakash said, she's as real as they come. She is who she is. And that's what I love about her so much, because when she comes on the desk, our conversation is going to be like a private conversation, but you're getting witness to it on national television. And that, may be dangerous, but I love it. Got to a career high in singles this year, which I know that's her goal, right? I mean, like, she made the year-end finals in doubles. I'm so happy for her that she's a Wimbledon champion, a Grand Slam champion, to do it at Wimbledon. I could not be more proud of her. But the singles is where she's focused on. I don't see why she can't be a top 20 player at the end of 2025. She works so hard, is so focused, and like Prakash said, I mean, her game is a problem for a lot of players. They're not used to it. They're not used to that leftiness, the slice and dice at the net. Her hands are made of feathery gold, right? And so I got so much love for Taylor.
And you know what? That's where I met Brothers on Tennis. I mean, I was coming out of Taylor's match at Indian Wells, and I had to grab my son at one point during the match because, he's so used to talking to Taylor in a certain way. And during the middle of the match, she has a double fault, and he's like, "Listen, shorty, it don't mean nothing. It don't mean nothing. She ain't got nothing for you." And I'm like, "Bro, sit down. Sit down. We're at Indian Wells. You can't get on the phone. Stop." Prakash, I'm sorry I cut you off.
No. Just on top of that, it's not just on the court. She gives you everything. She's got some of the best sellies out there. She gives you everything, and you want that on the court. Her press conferences, it's always 15 different sound bites, which are amazing. She gives you everything.
Absolutely. Bryce.
And I was just going to say, as we're wrapping this up, as much love as you guys have for Taylor, that's how much love we have for you guys. I mean, it's, this show here for us as a concept was just like Isaac and I and a guest panel of 3 individuals. We weren't sure who they were going to be. There is not another podcast that is going to have a year-end review like we just had. As a matter of fact, Isaac, I don't know what we're going to do for next year. I mean, I guess we'll have to get Roger, Rafa, and Serena, and they won't be as good, but we'll get them, to come on the show. Seriously, on behalf of the BOT family, we are so appreciative and thankful for the time that you spent with us. Our followers are going to absolutely love this, and you always have a home here at Brothers on Tennis, and we are once again so thankful for you guys always embracing us over the last couple of years as we kind of got this thing going. You guys mean the world to us.
Thank you.
Love and appreciate what you guys do. Keep doing it. Keep pouring your heart into it, and you got 3 huge supporters over here.
By the way, somebody asked me at the tennis club where I got my Brothers on Tennis hat from. They were like, "Did you make that?" I was like, no, stop. That's from
Love it.
And it was great to meet you all, like in person this year, multiple times. Yeah. So hopefully more of that coming up as well.
Finally, and Prakash, we did pass the message that, Steve's always late to the party, That was great. So we're wishing you and your families the happiest of holidays. But, we got a strong 2025 to look forward to in this professional tennis world. And we'll be looking to many of you for that guidance on the telly as we're tuning in.
You'll be looking to them. I'll be.
We still see you on the telly at the tennis tournament
or something like that. This trial will start it or something. I mean.
So, on behalf of the BOT family, everyone, we wish you happy holidays. We'll be back with our BOT awards in the beginning of the year. But for the final time in 2024, on behalf of the podcast, this is your boy Bryce.
And this is your boy Isaac.
And we are Brothers on Tennis. Everyone, be well.